Who's got the yellow headlights? Ted's got yellow headlights. Kyla as well.
I think we are now live. Yes, we are. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Gavra Racing GT Sport League Season 4, Round 14 for the penultimate race of the Group B Championship. I'm X-Natty G, and I'm actually joined by a new commentator for tonight's race. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course. Good evening. I am Topster, racing in Gavra, and I'll just have a little sneak and peek into the commentary business tonight.
And I believe this is your first commentary. Hopefully it should go well. We've got 7 drivers here tonight round at Mount Panorama. It should be a good race, hopefully. It was a decent race yesterday in the Group A race. We saw plenty of overtaking. Just checking if the stream has gone live, because I'm not getting it up on my screen anymore, but it's all saying we're live, so we'll go with it for now. Drivers slowing down in the third sector to make way for others, but it's going to be Wolfie to start the first flying lap of the session. 18 minutes of the usual qualifying session. We've already had about 2.5, and we've got 15 minutes and 45 left to go. Championships have all been wrapped up, both in drivers and constructors, but who do you think is going to take the race win here today?
Oh, it's looking quite difficult for Wolfie to continue his race win streak. Looking for his 12th win in the season out of 15 races, quite remarkable. As we've seen, Dutchy has struggled in the Alfa Romeo yesterday, so I'm kind of having, looking out for Ted for the race win, actually. The Peugeot is quite a stable car, but also watch out for Woody. He's got some pace.
Yeah, the top two, Ted and Wolfie, who have been at it throughout the majority of this season. As you were saying, Wolfie's won every race but 2, where he's finished second in those 2 races, Brands Hatch and Fuji. Ted yet to finish on the top step of the podium tonight, but like you were saying, the Peugeot isn't a bad car here at Mount Panorama, and I'd say it probably favours or comes out on top over the Alfa Romeo. Woody as well, who's been a little bit inconsistent in his results this season, but around Mount Panorama we've seen him at this track in the past. His last podium was at Suzuka, so he'll be trying to turn that around. Didn't get one in Group 4. We're in the 4th race of Group 3, and he is back and trying to seek out some redemption after a DNF last week in Spa. Wolfie, though, going down the back straight. Let's see what his sector split's like through the middle sector. It's a 1:34.1. He's obviously going purple. He's the only driver to go through that sector as things stand. Let's have a look at Ted's time. 36.37. That's not actually going to clock over, so we'll have to wait and see what Ted's time's like in respective to his teammate. Thank you to everyone who's currently watching. Thank you to everyone joining us in the chat as well. Wolfie makes his way around the final corner for the first time tonight. Let's see what lap time he can do on the medium tyres. It's going to be a 2-minute 3.1. But what can his teammate do in the Peugeot? Can he beat that time? I think it's going to be close. It looks like it might be close. It's not as close as I thought. It's a 2-minute 4.7, 1.5 seconds off provisional pole. Woody going up into second, 1.3 seconds behind, a 2-minute 4.3. I think we'd expect to see times in the 2-minute 3s, maybe even the high 2-minute 2s. Pole in Group A yesterday was a 2-minute 1.7, I think.
I think so, yeah. Set by, wasn't it?
Dutchy on pole.
Dutchy, yes.
Narrowly beating out to Saint by, I think, a 10th, so it was really close in the Group A race. Kyler loves into the pits, and he's got engine damage and suspension damage. I would imagine he'd probably pick that up somewhere in between turn 11 and turn 17, also known as the Dipper, the downhill technical sector. That Wolfie's approaching now, and he's 6/10 down on his time. Might be into the pits for a new set of mediums, or he might just have backed off of this lap. Might go for it again on the next.
Those racing medium tyres should be good for 2 good quali laps. After that, they will drop off unless you find some pace miraculously.
See sparks flying off the barriers as Ted just clipping the right-hand wall onto the exit of of turn 17, currently in third place, 3.5 tenths behind Woody. Running second in the championship, he can no longer catch his teammate, and the constructors have been won, so he will be fighting for his own personal achievements and trying to get his first race win of the season. He is 4.5 tenths up though through the third sector, and he might just get a little bit of a slipstream from the Scout down in front through the final mini straight. Gets a little bit of a tank slapper on the curb that might have cost him half a tenth or so. Down the approaching the final corner, where can Ted MC put his Peugeot on his second flying lap? Can he close the gap to his teammate? Can he overtake Woody and join Wolfie on the front row of the grid? Not quite 900ths in it, but does improve by 3 tenths, and I think he's still got time to find.
Yeah, definitely room for improvement for Ted. This Peugeot is a stable car, especially through the downhill section. So you might just have to find that tiny iota of pace with a bit of commitment. This is what this track is all about.
Yeah, certainly. It's how committed are you, especially into the middle sector, where all the time can be gained or lost. The right lines, getting on the power, not too early, not too late. Getting millimetres from the barriers can make all the difference. Obviously contact with the barriers as well, especially going through the high speed corners, turn 9 and turn 10, the corners that Wolfie's going through now. That slight contact with the barrier can be enough to lose all the momentum before going down into the downhill dipper. Wolfie's 7 tenths off of his time, so he might come into the pits, and he's in the wall, and he's got front suspension and aero damage, so he'll definitely be into the pits. The first mistake from your championship leader, championship winner in fact, and well, maybe we might see some of that happen in the race as well. We never know. Woody hitting the barrier on the exit of turn 5. So a few mistakes being made early on in qualifying might be reminiscent for what's to come in the race.
Yeah, you can still allow yourself to have these kind of mistakes in qualifying, and still take some risks to seek out the reward. But it will be a different story in the race, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I'd much rather make a mistake in qualifying than in the race. Qualifying where you pushed 110% of the time lap after lap, trying to find all the time and extracting what you can from the car, and mistakes will be made the harder you push. If you don't push hard enough, then, well, you'd expect yourself to start from the back of the grid pretty much. The Scout Dan's going to try and move himself off the back row of the grid, going around the final corner and up to the line. What time is it going to be for the young Brit? It's a 4th place, and it's a 2-minute 4.8 and 3 tenths behind Ted, and 1.6 seconds off of provisional pole, currently held by Wolfie, who's in the pits.
Airing damage.
Let's find someone who's going to start or finish a lap. Woody's starting his lap, currently on an out lap after just pitting for a fresh set of medium tyres. Wolfie and Ted coming out of the pit lane together, going wheel to wheel up the hill and towards turn 2. You can see Woody in the background just starting his lap. The first sector's not really much to go by. It is only one corner in half a straight, but it gives us somewhat of a sign. He's half a tenth down, so not the best turn 1. Malik Sanders is starting one of his laps. Kyler Love's coming to the end in one of the most beautiful sounding Group 3 cars there are in the game, the Mazda RX Vision GT3. Currently 7th place in the qualifying session so far. I think he's 7th place in the championship as well, so matching his qualifying pace with his championship standings. He's currently on 131 points, fighting for 2nd place in constructors. Can he move himself off the back row of the grid? Does so, goes up into 5th place, 2 seconds behind the Scout Dan. Quite a widespread field here tonight.
As we've got Woody going through the downhill section, 5.5 tenths up his lap time.
And he has Ted and Wolfie just ahead. They're not going to get in the way, it seems. They're not close enough for the dirty air nor the slipstream, but then just need to keep an eye out on the young Irishman coming down the back straight. I think they might start to lift off as they approach the final corner. Hopefully they don't impede Woody, but the gap's about 3-4 seconds between them. They should get away with it. Let's have a look at his sector split. How has he done through the dipper? He's improving by half a tenth through his 3rd sector, 6 tenths up on his overall time. This could be a good lap from Woody if he can nail the final 3 corners. You can see his brake discs are on fire, glowing red from the inside of the car. There's only 1 corner to go, still 7 minutes left to go, so there's still time for improvement. But where can Woody close down the gap to Wolfie? If not, pull it on provisional pole. It's a short run up to the line, and it's a good time, 2 minute 3.4, but it's 3/10 behind Wolfie. And as the track gets quicker, as the time goes on, who knows, he might get his first pole of the season. Alex Andils improves, but it's only good enough to close down the gap to ND, who goes up into 5th place himself in that Nissan. And well, the Nissan's quite an oversteery car. It definitely has the front end grip. It might struggle around this track, especially through the downhill dipper. He's definitely going to have to be on the edge with throttle application when going through the middle and 3rd sector. It might be a tough job from ND today, who's working with Kyler Love as hard as he can to close down the gap to Dan. No, sorry, that's not right. Kyler Love is teammates with Dan. Melix Sanders and ND, will be trying as hard as they can to keep 2nd place in the championship. Kyler Love's doing his best and goes up into 5th place. Him and Dan fighting for 2nd. Only 30 points separate the 2 teams.
I'm looking at Wolfie and Ted being very close throughout the entirety of both of their laps. Ted, though, might get a slipstream from Wolfie here, and he is improving, I think. Let's look at his 3rd sector split. He is by 3.5 tenths, so that toe coming in handy for Ted.
Yeah, Wolfie as well, not improving, backs off, let his teammate go through. He will get the benefit of the toe on the next lap, however, but all eyes now on Ted. We've still got 5 minutes left to go as he makes his way through the 4th sector. 1 corner to go for Ted. Can he close down the gap to Woody, close down the gap to his teammate, and join his teammate on the front row of the grid? Up to the line, it's a fairly long run, not the longest run though, does improve by 5 tenths, closes the gap to Woody. Now it's 4.5 tenths between the 2 Irish drivers, and this time round it's going to be Wolfie with the toe and trying to extend his provisional pole advantage.
Let's see what he can make of this lap. Can he creep into the 2 minute 2s? Might be possible with that toe. He's improved by 1,000 in sector 1.
It's the smallest improvement, but an improvement nevertheless through the 1st sector, consisting of only 1 corner. And is this Ted getting out of the way for his teammate? Yes, it is. Wolfie now goes through.
Ted was scraping alongside the wall at the exit of turn 2. That's why he had to make some space to not compromise him for the rest of the lap. That means Wolfie will lose the toe on the back straight.
Possibly some mind games coming into play, or maybe Ted thought he was a little bit more ahead, but saw Wolfie was probably a little bit too close going through the middle sector, didn't want to hold him up too much. We got Kyler Love into the pits, a few drivers making their way down the dipper. That is actually Wolfie and Ted. I was flicking through everyone, so it looks good. It is going to be Wolfie, the next driver to set a qualifying lap. We've still got 3 minutes 45 seconds left to go. Through Forest Elbow he goes for the 7th time this qualifying session. Let's have a look at his sector split through the third sector, the longest straight on the track, and between turn 18 and turn 21, including the little 2 kinks down the straight. Let's improve here. He's purple by just under 3.5 tenths. This could be in the 2 minute 2s. I think it will be in the 2 minute 2s if he can negotiate the final 3 corners correctly and keep it on the track, which he does do for turn 21 and 22. Up the little hill in towards the final corner is Wolfie going to extend his provisional pole advantage, currently 3 tenths in it with a 2 minute 3.1. This lap looks good enough to get into the 2 minute 2s. It is good enough for the 2 minute 2s, only just. It's a 2 minute 2.9, 5 tenths clear now of Woody behind, and there's not long left before qualifying ends.
Woody about to answer Wolfie's quali lap here. It's about to start what is going to be his final quali lap, probably. And
looks that way. He might just get one more in. Lap times being 2:02s. He's got 2:20 coming around the final corner, so he does have one more chance, but he's not going to be able to back off on this lap if he makes a mistake. So it's time for the final laps here in qualifying. ND will be starting his final lap, might get one more in as well. Who's that going around the final corner? It's Melik Sandils. It's going to be close, but I don't think he's going to get another one in. So Melik Sandils might be the first driver to finish qualify, going over the line now with only 2 minutes left to go. So unless this is a world record time for Melik Sandils, he does have damage as well, so he's probably not going to improve on this lap unless his initial fastest lap is just a banker. We'll have to wait and see.
Ted all out of shape in the downhill section, that will cost him time. Meanwhile, Woody only half a tenth up in sector 1. Oh, it being just one corner.
Could be half a tenth, that makes all the difference. In the end, we've seen how fine the margins have been all season, how they've been so close in Group A as well. Wolfie's 4 seconds down his time, so he's going to go for another one after this lap. He's got enough time with 1.5 minutes left to go in the session. Ted is closely behind in pursuit, but you'd think on these two on the Warner medium tyres they might not have the time or the tyres left. If Woody has got front suspension and aero damage, so he's not going to have time to pit and repair it. This could be quali over for Woody, and he is actually coming into the pits, but he's not going to have enough time to go out and set another time. So it's going to be P2 at minimum for Woody. Meanwhile, the two forget-me-not drivers are going to have enough time to start their final laps. The Scout Down making his way through turn 22 in towards the final corner. Can he improve from 4th place? He's got to find 9/10 of a second if he's to get ahead of Ted. He's been fighting with Ted in the past few races. Can he get ahead of him here in qualifying? Not quite. He's 4/10 off of his personal best, but will get another shot. So that's 3 drivers in the pits then, ND, Kyler Love and Woody, who won't be improving. Here goes Melik Sandils around the final corner. He does have the damage. His personal best is a 2:08.2. It looks like he might improve, but is it going to be an improvement in terms of grid position? Not quite. He improves by a second, and it's good enough for 7th place, and I think that is qualifying over for the Irishman. What
We've
about...
got Ted going purple. We've got Ted going purple into sector 3.
This could be a blistering lap from Ted. He needs to find just under a second if he's to put it on pole position. I think, I'm just going to double check, but I think that might be, or this could be, his first pole. No, we got pole in the Nürburgring, so this could be Ted's second pole of the season. Let's have a look at his sector split. He's got the slipstream of his teammate in front, and he's 5/10 up, so this could be good enough to get on the front row. Maybe not pole position, and he's the best final sector you could possibly imagine if he's to get ahead of his championship winner and his teammate. Only one corner to go for Ted. He's got Wolfie right in front of him. He's going to get a little bit of slipstream around this final corner. Let's see though, is Wolfie able to extend his gap out in front as he makes his way up to the line for the final time here in qualifying? He doesn't improve. What about Ted? He does improve by 4/10, and it's 300ths behind Woody, and will start alongside Dan on the second row of the grid. Fine margins. So close, but yet so far, and it could have been the exit from turn 1, that first sector, that might have made all the difference. What about the Scout Down though? Can he find 1.3 seconds on what's only going to be his 4th lap? He's only done 4 laps in this qualifying session. Up to the line, he finds 7.5 but it's not good enough to improve his grid position. And with ND out on not on a lap, Melik Sandils not on a lap, I think that's qualifying over. We've still got 42 seconds left of the cooldown timer, but I think it's not accounting for Woody and Kyler still in the pit. So it's going to be another pole from Wolfie here, his 3rd consecutive pole of the season, and it's going to be Woody joining him on the front row of the grid. Ted making it in Irish 1, 2, 3 will be joined by the Scout Dan in 4th place with ND in 5th. Kyler Love in 6th, and Melik Sandils starts from 7th place at the back of the grid.
Yeah, the battle for 3rd in the championship is about to ensue here. The Scout Dan and ND both on 201 points. will start alongside on the grid. And obviously both of them trying to shift that battle into their favour, but in qualifying, Dan has the upper hand. Let's see how the race turns out. It can all change. No one knows what can happen.
Yeah, it's hard to overtake, but easy to make mistakes here at Mount Panorama. Round 14 of the season for the Group B Championship, the penultimate race of the season. And it is Wolfie who will start on pole position for the third consecutive time here at Mount Panorama. 23 corners make up this track in Australia, 6.2 kilometres long, and one that should provide many actions on the circuit, whether it be overtaking, whether it be drivers hitting the barriers. You can hear the engines roaring, the headlights flashing as we build to 5 red lights here in Bathurst, and it's lights out and away we go. And look at the start from the Scout Dan, already up into third place, challenging Wolfie and Woody in towards turn 1, not Wolfie, sorry, Ted on the inside of his teammate, down up into third place, Woody being demoted down into 4th as we make their way in towards turn 2. The slipstream and the straight line speed is where a key overtaking opportunity. Ted's tucking in close behind his teammate. He's less than a tenth behind. Is he going to go for a move in towards turn 2? He's just going to tuck in behind for now. Here goes the Scout down though. Ted might send one on his teammate. Not quite. Woody's gone wide into the barrier. That might concede the position to Kyler and ND, and he does. He drops down to 6th place. Ted up into 2nd place, but for how much longer? He's got the Scout down right behind him. Not close enough though to go for a send. Menix Sanders on the inside of ND makes contact down at turn 4 and demotes ND down in towards 7th place. Woody down to 6th, not the start he would have been hoping for, but I think everyone's scathed with escaped turn 1 without any damage, so that is all good.
This is where it gets difficult. Cold tyres on lap 1 into the downhill section. Wolfie still has it easy, but the guys behind him have the added dirty air effect. But so far, everyone through safely.
And I think everyone has survived the dipper on the opening lap. Wolfie with a 1 second advantage, exactly how he would have wanted to start this race. The Scout down ahead of his championship rival, up into 3rd place onto the podium. He's a little bit more familiar now with these podium positions, finishing in the podium in 2 of the last 3 races. His first podium in Sardinia A, his first podium of the season, first podium of the GT Sport League. It's been a good championship for Dan. Here goes Woody on Menix Sanders down in towards turn 20. He's going to go for it on the inside. Can he outbrake his fellow Irishman? There's contact between the two. Menix Sanders just stays on the track, but he might lose the position to ND, who's going side by side with the Mercedes in the run down towards the final corner. Who's going to be later on the brakes? Menix Sanders keeps his Mercedes alongside, rides the inside curb. They're still going to go wheel to wheel on exit. Who's got the better drive on the exit? Looks like they're both evenly matched in the run down towards turn 1. ND might just have the upper edge with the momentum, but it's going to be Menix Sanders who comes out on top as they make their way now down towards turn 2. Gap started to open up early on in this race, but ND is closely behind Menix Sanders in this battle for 6th place. And their battles for the Constructors' Championships. Only 30 points separating the two teams in 2nd place, and we're both trying to be fighting for runners-up with only 2 races to go, where every point is important, and that's ND hitting the wall on the inside of turn 4. No damage though, but he's lost 1.3 seconds to Menix Sanders. Ted is gaining on his teammate as well. Having said that, the gap's gone back up to 1.2. Ted's hit the wall, but no damage on the Peugeot, thankfully. And he's still in this fight for the lead. Only 1.2 seconds, separating the two teammates. And I think Ted is going to be going for it at this track, going for it more than any other track, as I think he knows. He saw the race yesterday in Group A, and he saw that Alfa Romeo struggling a little bit, but Wolfie's doing a good job after the end of 2 laps to keep it in the lead. But Ted's going to be fighting this one for the rest of the race, I'd imagine. Here goes Woody going for a move on Kyler Love. To the inside, you can see almost running over the camera angle we got. Kyler Love goes late on the brakes in towards turn 1. Woody's going to try the switchback move through 22 in towards 21 in towards 22. now in towards the final corner. He's not close enough to send it, and I think turn 2 might be his best bet, trying to recover the poor start, running wide on turn 2 in the opening lap. He might actually go for it here in towards turn 1. Kyler defends the inside line. Woody, can he be late enough on the brakes to hold it around the outside? This is going to be close. Doesn't quite get the move done, but it is going to have the momentum in towards turn 2.
Yeah, he will now utilise the slipstream and also the superior straight line speed of that Toyota Supra. Approaching turn 2 now. He's setting it up.
Sends one to the inside. And that beautifully executed move from Woody, now up into 4th place. Kyler didn't defend it all too much, but he's now got to gain 5.3 seconds to the Scout Dan in front. We've still got plenty of laps left for him to do it, and anything can happen. Mistakes can be made. As speaking of mistakes, Wolfie running a little bit wide onto the grass. He's now only got a 6/10 advantage to his teammate, who is closing in all the time. We're halfway through lap 3. And we might see a change for the lead pretty shortly. The slipstream down the back straight definitely aids overtaking in the run down towards turn 20. And Ted might just be hoping for a few more little mistakes from his teammate in order to pick up his first win of the season. The gap still close between Menex Sanders and ND, only 6/10 between the two Irish drivers fighting for 6th place. Might be last on the track, but still crucial points for the drivers who couldn't make it for today's race, as Ted's just got that gap back up to 1.1 seconds now, currently out of the slipstream effect. Obviously it will have some slipstream effect, but not as much as if you were, let's say, 7/8 behind the car in front. Woody has already closed down that gap though to 4 seconds. Blistering pace from the Irishman in the Toyota. He might have Dan in the next 3 or 4 laps at the rate that he's closing the gap. And on that last lap, Ted sets the fastest lap of the race, a 10th quicker than Wolfie. It's a 2:04.3 for the Irishman, running 2nd place on track, 2nd place in the championship, and it continues to go purple through the first sector. He's on a charge here to pick up his first win of the season, but he's got to be cool and consistent with this race. He doesn't want to throw away some easy points that he could pick up from this result. It's really easy to push that little bit too hard and make as what some drivers might describe as a stupid mistake.
Oh, and it's Kyler Love off at the exit of turn 2.
I'm not sure what's happened there, but we'll get a replay of what's happened. Menex Sanders and ND actually going wheel to wheel, but he's gone wide on the exit turn 2 and he couldn't quite control the rear, and we got a replay of the Mazda spinning around on the exit of turn 2. Just lost it running wide onto the curb, and we saw similar things happen with Tim's Mazda the other day with his rear end grip. And maybe the Mazda not the best car for this track, but obviously once you pick a car for the first race in the car class, you can't change it, and also not every car is going to be good at every track, which is what makes these calendar selections definitely interesting. We've seen the Alfa Romeo good at tracks such as Spain, Spain and Catalunya, it's the same thing, Spain and Spa, but tracks like Mount Panorama, you'd think cars like the Peugeot, the Porsche, the Toyota, they might have the upper hand over the other cars around him.
Yeah, this calendar track choice does not really invite a meta car, as I would call it, so to say. Which obviously diversifying the grid even more, which is nice to see.
Yeah, it's like if you had a calendar full of Monzas and Tokyo Expressways, Le Mans, I think you'd be pretty fixated to 1 or 2 cars in particular. One of them being the Mercedes, one of them probably being the McLaren F1, 2 of the fastest cars in a straight line in the Group 3 category. Kyler Love's into the pits to repair the damage, and I'd imagine go on. Well, we saw Toussaint pit at the end of lap 3 after sustaining damage in yesterday's race, so Kyler Love could be onto a 3-stop, or he might try and stretch the mediums and the softs and the super softs, to the end of the race. Here goes ND though, going to the outside of Menix. Andal's in the run down towards turn 2. Menix defends the inside line. Can ND hold this one round the outside? They're still going to go wheel to wheel. This is great racing and a great overtake from ND around the outside of turn 2. We saw Tim do it yesterday, and 2 beautifully executed moves promotes the Irishman up into 5th place. And now we'll have to try and hunt a 13-second gap to Woody. The top 4 really pulling away from the rest of the field. Woody's closed down that gap to the Scout Dan. He's closed that gap down to Ted. Ted might have made a mistake here because he's only 5/10 ahead of Dan.
Yeah, he did. I saw him losing the rear as I switched to his camera view. Ted may be struggling with the tires. He is slippery in the corner exits. This allowed Wolfie to build his gap to 4.3 seconds now.
Dan in the slipstream, that gap closing by the second. Down the back straight, the longest straight on the track. Is he going to go for a send? Ted goes semi-defensive, pulls back over to the inside, defends the Scout Dan from any late attempts of a dive down the inside. Looks like Dan went a little bit too deep in towards turn 21, and he's lost time to Ted in front. The gap opening up to about 1.2 seconds now, so little mistakes kicking in early on. You can see the dust being kicked off through the final corner, and this has allowed Woody to close down that gap massively, now 1.8 seconds behind, and sets the fastest lap of the race. He's on a charge back through the field after his mistake at turn 2, lap 1. Gap out in front extending to 5.7 seconds now. Was 4.3 half a lap ago. Ted making a few mistakes early on in this race. The Scout Dan's now closed down that gap to just only 9/10, but also has Woody closing in behind 1.3, 1.5, 1.4 seconds. Ted's gone wide through turn 4. That could allow Dan to go down the inside, and does go down the inside. He promotes himself up into 2nd place, and it looks like Ted's just losing it here on these medium tyres, whether it be the tyre wear kicking in, maybe a lack of concentration, but you can see a replay there, him going deep in towards turn 4, and that's what conceded his 2nd place, and now it's the Scout Dan up into 2nd, and now Ted's going to be under pressure from Woody in a few laps.
We might see a 3-way battle here for 2nd place. Already in the first stint of the race.
And all this is doing is allowing Wolfie to extend his lead out in front. I'm sure he'll be loving life at the minute. 6 seconds is the gap out in front, and with these 3 fighting behind, it's going to be interesting to see who pulls the trigger early and decides to try an undercut attempt. Obviously, though, the tyres will be more worn towards the end of the race. It's a guaranteed 2-stop pretty much, with the softs and super softs, all 3 tyres being mandatory. All these drivers starting on the mediums. Here goes Ted though. Is he going to try and send one to the outside of the Scout Dan, who defends the inside line and defends it well enough for Ted not to go for anything? He's going to try a switchback move and get a better run on the exit of the corner. He's now going to go up alongside into the final corner. Ted down the inside and towards the final corner. Dan leaves him the room. A little bit of contact between the two as Ted rides over the inside curb, allows Woody to get a good run in towards turn 1. Is he going to send one? Dan defends the inside line, and this could be 3 wide into turn 2 if these guys aren't careful. Ted with a good momentum through turn 1, pulls up alongside the Englishman, but here comes Woody. Don't count him out. Is the track wide enough for these cars to go 3 wide? I'm not sure. Dan tucks in behind the Peugeot for now. Could be vulnerable to Woody, who's going to try and get involved. He's going to go down the inside of Dan. He's going to try and go round the outside of Ted. This could get messy if they're not careful. Dan round the outside of Ted. Can he make this one stick? He's almost pushing the barrier. In fact, he does hit the barrier on the outside. That's going to allow Woody to go round the outside and towards turn 3. Can he make this one stick? Woody's now brushing the wall on the right hand side. A little bit too much momentum being carried into the corner. But then all of that, Ted gets ahead up into 2nd. Woody has to stay in for 4th place for now, but some great racing, and almost ended in disaster. Kyler Love's into the pits from the softs. He just pitted onto the softs and has got front suspension and aero damage. That's not the start of the race he would have been hoping for. He can go into the super softs, but both tyres and fuel won't make it to the end of the race. Might go into super softs just so he has a free choice for his final stint. I might try and go for another long medium run. We'll have to wait and see. A few drivers hitting the wall. I think that was Woody hitting the wall on the exit of Forest Elbow. That's not going to help his run down towards turn 21. Dan now in the slipstream of Ted. He's not close enough though to go for a move towards the final sector, about 6/10 behind, but that gap coming down with the aid of the slipstream, both Dan and Ted in the Peugeot. So both cars are on paper matched in speed, but it's how much each driver can extract performance from the car. And at the minute they're running, well, there's 9/10 between the two. We'll have to wait and see which one comes out on top. This battling though for second has extended Wolfie's lead to now 9, nearly 10 seconds. They were over a second slower on the last lap.
Yes, it has. It also allows Wolfie to kind of set the cruise control, preserve tyres and maybe fuel, while the 3 drivers behind him are busy fighting.
He doesn't need to push that much and can take it a little bit more conservative out in front. But has dominated the early phase of the race. We're 8 laps into this race, and we've seen a few pit stops, a few bits of contact. We've had a little bit of everything here tonight, but what we haven't had so far is a change for the lead. 9 seconds is the gap between Wolfie and Ted, who's going to try his best to hold back Dan and Woody, who Dan's got damage from that contact with the barrier. He's picked up front left suspension and aero damage. I thought Ted might have had damage for hitting the wall the first time, but Dan definitely hit it a lot harder than the Irishman in front. He's now going to be vulnerable to Woody. He's going to go down the inside and towards the dipper, and I think Dan might have let him go. Doesn't want to fight this one with the damage, doesn't want to hold up Woody all too much, and he could be in for an early pit stop, a forced early pit stop off of the medium tyres, and to repair the damage, which is definitely going to cost him time. Woody's gone deep, he's hit the barrier, he's in the wall, and he's got damage as well. So that's 2 of the podium contenders now out with Dan. Well, not out of the race, but out of a chance of getting a good result. They've still got the gap to ND, but they've got damage earlier in this race, and I'm sure Ted might have enjoyed that. And he can now breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief. The gap's now 2 seconds to Dan, and Woody, Dan, both with damage.
Yeah, meaning that they will lose an additional 5 seconds, it is, I think, for the pit stop. 2 seconds for the suspension and 3 for the bumper. So, yeah, Ted probably feeling relieved now.
Dan stays out, Woody stays out as well. Interesting they're both staying out. We saw Two Saints stay out for a lap or 2 with his damage, but I mean, the fuel can go to the end. Well, not a full tank of fuel, but 2 full tanks of fuel can go to the end of the race. So maybe they're just trying to get the best out of the medium tyres with the damage, and then I just thought they'd have hit that lap and try to go for an undercut on Ted, because obviously they're going to have the extra 4-5 seconds added onto the pit stop when they repair the damage. So I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see where these 2 feed out and if they can close the gap down later on in the race. Let's have a look at the constructors' standings as well. Well, we can't really calculate anything until the final lap, because it's all probably going to change anyway. ND and Melix Sanders 30 points ahead of Kyler Love and the Scout Dan, and as things stand, it looks like it could be quite close after this one, with Melix in 6th, ND in 7th, the Scout Dan in 3rd, Kyler in 7th. So I think that is Dan and Kyler gaining points on ND and Melix Sanders. So it's going to be good for them in their constructors' fights for runner-up. The Scout Dan and ND also equal on points in the Drivers' Championship, 201 each. We'll be looking to try and claim 3rd place. If anything, Dan's actually closing that gap to Ted. The gap was 2 seconds, so it's now 1.5. Maybe a mistake from Ted, or Dan just has some pace despite the damage. Wolfie rounds the final corner to start lap number 10 of 27. The scheduled pit window's roughly open. Lap 10 to I think 12 is probably when we'll see drivers pitting from the mediums onto a set of the softs or the super softs. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously drivers like kind of love on different strategies, having picked up damage early on. The gap, though, back up to 2 seconds between the Scout Dan and Ted. Woody staying out with his damage as well. Losing more time to Dan is to Ted. So there might be an early off those mediums. I would have thought they'd have pit by now, but I think they're just trying to take the tyres and the fuel as long as they can into this race.
The undercut might be an option here in this three-way fight. Yesterday it proved to be a good strategy. Gained a lot of time, in my case at least. Yeah, that damage though is going to be a thorn in the eye for both Dan and Woody. Let's see what they make of it.
Yeah, it looks like Dan's keeping up with Ted's pace. He's closed it back down to 1.5. Whether that's his pace with the damage or if Ted's making some minor mistakes that is costing his time. Maybe Dan's just going full send despite the damage. He knows he's limited to the pace he can extract with the car.
Oh, Dan off at the dipper in the SS.
He's got more damage and he lets Woody go through on the outside. We're just talking about how Dan's got some pace. Let's get a replay for you, ladies and gentlemen, to see what happened. And that's unfortunate for Dan. He got onto the grass on the inside. And there you can see Woody going through on the right-hand side of the track. Not what he'd have been hoping for. And I think he's probably going to come into the pit stop at the end of this lap now, having picked up suspension damage to both front tyres.
Woody coming into the pits.
Follow him in.
First one to pull the trigger.
Wolfie into the pit, so there's Ted's 11 seconds behind, and I don't think the undercut is that powerful. But Ted's into the pits. Woody actually staying out. The Scout Dan into the pits, so that's the top 3 into the pits. Woody will then promote himself up into the net lead of the race. And will lead maybe 1 lap. He might pit at the end of this lap to repair the damage and cover off the undercutters. ND staying out as well on the medium tyres. One driver who hasn't picked up damage in this race. Interestingly, Woody decided to stay out, and that's someone off at turn 1. That's ND running wide. Wolf doesn't actually cost him a heap of time, maybe about 4 or 5 tenths. Not what he would have been hoping for. Wolfie's onto the softs. Ted's onto the softs. Will Dan try something different and go on to super softs? He's repairing the damage. You can see the tyres have been repaired. The fuel's gone in, and he goes on to the soft compound tyres.
What will be Woody's plan here, which will be very interesting. Stayed out while the others pitted, despite his damage.
Yeah, I'm surprised Woody chose to stay out, because he had both Ted and Wolfie in front of him, so it's not like he was leading that train and the cars behind him decided to try and undercut him. He saw the cars in front pit, so maybe he knows something we don't. Maybe he thinks he can extract some more pace from the medium tyres. With the damage, he has got the fuel light on, so he's only got about a lap left of fuel in the tank. We'll be into the pits at the end of this lap. Ted getting a little bit loose through the dipper. I saw an arrow that looked like it went off the track, but I don't think anyone's got any damage or lost all too much time. Maybe Woody might try something different and go into the super softs. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, staying out the extra lap, he's going to have the fresher tyres at the end of the race. But is that going to be the advantage he needs to fight for a podium? He does have the damage, which will feel like an age when he has to repair it in the pits, and into the pits he does go. It's interesting to see what tyre he goes onto and where he'll feed out. Will he go out behind Dan, who's now 12.5 seconds behind Ted? This could be quite close. ND also is into the pits. That then promotes Wolfie back up into the lead of the race. Ted back up into second, but where is Woody going to come out? And someone's actually crashed through the dipper. The arrow's just gone. who has left, and that's Kyler Love, who has crashed down at the dipper. I saw the arrow backwards and then it just disappeared, and he's no longer on the leaderboard. We're down to 6 drivers here tonight, and Woody's coming out of the pits, but it's the Scout Dan who retakes 3rd place, and it's actually closer than I thought it would be. I thought Dan would be just a little bit ahead, but I did have a little bit more time to serve in the pit lane with both tyres, with 2 broken front suspension damage. And that is Kyler retiring from this race after 12 laps of Mount Panorama. But the battle is now on for 3rd place on this track, and the final podium position, Andy in the background as well. He's only 4.5 seconds behind, so if these two battle for a lot of the race, then it could be Andy finding himself on a podium position.
Yeah, meanwhile, Ted now also has a comfortable 13-second cushion to Dan. So, it must have been the outlap or the pit stop. Well, definitely the pit stop that cost Dan a lot of time. But yeah,
Dan with
the gap.
Dan having to wait to repair the damage to both his suspension and aero, picks up a 1-second time penalty for going over the curb down at the dipper, exceeding the track limits just a little bit too much on the inside of turn 12, and the gap's only 9/10 between those two. It'd be interesting to keep an eye on the gap to ND as well, 4.4 seconds, and that gap is slowly coming down in this past lap. What tyres did ND go on? He went onto a set of the soft, so all the drivers going for the standard medium soft, super soft that we've seen tonight, but you never know, it's not over yet. Ted could still technically win this, Dan could still technically win this, there's still plenty of time for mistakes, and anything can happen. Down with a 1-second time penalty. Wolfie's got a 1.7 second time penalty. It's quite difficult to serve penalties down at this track. I'd say probably turn 2, maybe turn 1's the best place to break slightly earlier, and the game will then serve the penalty. But we're going to have a race for 3rd place, and it could be a 3-way fight when ND joins the back of it. He's gained 4/10 in the past lap. He's now only 4 seconds behind Woody and Dan.
Yeah, mentioning the penalties, it's as difficult to actually get a penalty around here. There is not really a lot of space to extend track limits because they are defined by the walls.
Yeah.
Only in the dipper you will have 1 or 2 places where you can actually go over the white lines with all 4 wheels. So, yeah, actually quite remarkable to get a penalty around here.
The pit lane as well, it's quite, some might say it's what you want about cutting the corner in the pit lane. You're going slow into the pit lane. Well, it's quite a technical entry into the pits, and one that Tim struggled with yesterday, going wide into the barriers, making a pit stop, picked up damage in the process. But I saw Dutch as well a few seasons ago pick up, I think it was a 6-second time penalty for cutting the corner going into the pit lane. Were running quite excessive corner cutting limits there. That Woody's had a really good middle sector. He's closed down the gap to the Scout Dan. He's now only 6/10 behind on the exit of turn 18. And he's going to have the slipstream going down the straight in towards the final few corners, but it doesn't look like it's going to be enough to challenge for a move.
With ND behind, slowly creeping towards them. He's now 3.7 seconds behind him. Behind Woody and Dan. He's definitely starting to creep in a little. Dan and Woody possibly battling in the next few laps will definitely help that.
Yeah, definitely. The gap 3.9 seconds. And this battle for 3rd place on the track is now ensuing with a little bit more heat, as the gap is 7/10 between the two. Dan serving a little bit of time penalty going in towards turn 1. Woody's going to try his best. Dan's run wide on the exit of turn 1. That's going to give Woody the momentum he needs to get ahead before we start braking for turn 2. Dan there's going to tuck in behind into the slipstream, but is it going to be enough to pull him alongside into the braking zone? It doesn't look like it. That gap continues to increase, but a mistake from Dan costing him a potential podium position. It's going to be tough for him to gain the position back, but we've seen his pace in the early phase of the race, and the mistakes that the two drivers have made might be the difference between finishing 3rd, 4th, or possibly even 5th, with ND now only 3 seconds behind 3rd and 4th place. looking at the gap out in front, it's still 9-10 seconds between Wolfie and Ted. Ted keeping fairly consistent with his teammate, who has the fastest lap. Going back to the battle for third place between Dan and Woody. The gap's opened up now to 1.1 seconds. Endy's lost time through the third sector. Now 5.4 seconds. Not sure where he's made the mistake or lost the time. But definitely not what he would have been wanting in his hopes to finish on the podium, plus his battle with the Scout Dan. Dan will be scoring 3 more extra points than him if it was to finish as it is, finishing in 4th, claiming 18, finishing 5th, claiming 15. Maybe fastest laps could make all the difference in their fights for third place in the championship. It's going to be technically Dan can still finish, or Dan or Andy could still finish second place, but as it stands, if Ted finishes in second with Dan and Andy in 4th and 5th, then Ted will solidify and claim second place in the drivers' standings. He's about 53 points ahead of Dan and Andy, and with a maximum of 31 points on offer at a race weekend, that gap can no longer be closed down. Ted actually going purple through the first sector.
Let's see the sector split from Ted now here. Ted's slowly finding some time.
I mean, he's closed down the gap. It was 10 seconds. It's now 8.9. He's on a charge to fight this one back. He's not going to give this one up. This early, we're just over halfway through the race. Getting the rear stepped out through the hairpin. That looks quite nice, actually, despite hitting the barrier on exit. He's lost about maybe a tenth to his teammate out in front. Let's have a look at his sector split. Every point counts, despite the fact that the championships have been wrapped up and he's pretty much solidifying second place. He's 6 tenths off of his personal best, so it doesn't look like he's going to set the fastest lap. Woody, though, has actually set the fastest lap. What's happened to the Scout Dan? He's dropped 4.5 seconds behind Woody, and Andy's closed 2 seconds to Dan as well, so something must have happened to the young Brit, currently running in 4th place. He's 2.5 seconds off of his personal best, so he's definitely made a mistake somewhere within the third sector. Maybe, I'd have it hazard a guess as to say it was in the dipper. The gap style started to open up. Dan, you could say, is in one chunky Irish sandwich, running in 4th place. It's an Irish 1-2-3 as we start lap 16. Wolfie making his way through turn 4. Ted 9 seconds behind, 14 seconds ahead of Woody, who's pulling out that gap to the Scout Dan. Andy's closing in on his championship rival. We could see an intense battle for 4th place on the track. Andy's actually purple through the first sector by a tenth and a half, so he's must have had a really good run through the first sector. 2.7 seconds is now the gap between him and Dan, and he's going to try and close that gap down with only got 10 laps to go in this race. And it is Wolfie who continues to lead.
With the margin, meanwhile, staying quite constant now. There's pendulums between 8.5 to 10 seconds at their pace, unless one of them makes a mistake.
Oh, speaking of mistakes, Dan's hit the wall on the exit of turn 12, going down the dipper. He's picked up rear suspension and aero damage, and it's not the first time he's hit the barriers here today. We're looking at the replays. Initially ran wide going into the dipper through turn 10. Going down the dipper, he's just hit the blue barrier on the right-hand side, and that's more damage for the Scout Dan. He could be into the pits at the end of this lap to repair it, but he might try and stretch it out until the super soft period. But it's going to be more time cost in the pit lane, and that could be the gift that Andy was hoping for to claim 4th place in the race and 3rd place in the Drivers' Championship. Christmas could be coming early for the young Irishman.
Yep, there was the invitation, the gift, and Dia was waiting for a mistake, and look, the gap is down to 1.3 seconds now, as Dan will obviously lose a bit more time due to his damage, so yeah, it's all up to ND now.
And he can't afford to stay out too long. If he sees that gap starting to come down drastically, that's the cue for Dan to come into the pits, because he's got to pit, change tyres, put in the fuel, and then wait 2-3 seconds to repair the damage. Whereas when ND pits, sorry about opening up the chat, when ND pits, he's just got to change the tyres, put in the fuel, and then he's going to be gone. He's gone 3/10 purple through the first sector. Fastest lap currently owned by Woody, running in third place so far, making it an Irish 1-2-3. The gap though, 6/10 between these two. These two are fighting so hard in the championship fight, and it looks like it's now swinging ND's way. At one point it was Dan's, at one point it was Woody's for third place. Swung back over to Dan. It looks like ND's now going to try and capitalise on these mistakes that Dan's been making in the race. Still good enough for fourth place, but for how much longer? He's got to pit and serve the damage. How much time is it going to cost him? And will ND maybe try and undercut to promote himself up into fourth place slightly easier?
Dan all over the place in the dip, obviously with that rear grip missing. ND well in the slipstream of Dan. Will he set up a move into turn 21 here?
He's gaining all the time down the straight. My keyboard stopped working, unfortunately. I'll try and get it fixed for the rest of the race, but we've concentrated on the battle for fourth place. Down defends the inside line. Has he gone too deep? He has gone too deep. He's now corner cutting, cutting the grass, and that made it look close, but when re-entering the track, he's struggling to find the grip off the circuit. Only just rejoining. You'd have thought he'd have come into the pits after that mistake, but stays out, and he's now 3 seconds behind his championship rival. Down in fifth place with the damage. ND with another gift in this race. Christmas has come early for the Irishman. He's now gaining points on his championship rival, but it's still not over. We can't fully say ND's going to finish in fourth place, because mistakes can still be made. Speaking of mistakes, that was Ted hitting the wall there, getting close to the camera, losing time to the race leader Wolfie, but he's kind of in a race of his own here, as well as Woody. There's 10 seconds either side on the leaderboard, 11 seconds in front, 10 seconds behind. The closest battle on track is between the Scout Dan, who's hit the wall on the exit of turn 2. I don't think he got damage. Can't get a replay because the keyboard's broken again. I'll try and reset it. Oh no, it wasn't actually plugged in. I've pulled it out. That could be why it's not working. Oh, it's back. My controller's also about to disconnect, so I'm also going to put that on charge as well. 10 laps to go here at Mount Panorama, round 14. The end of the season is nearing, where every point counts. Dan's got to put on a stunning final stint if he's to close down that gap to ND.
Talking about closing down the gap, look at Woody's lap times in comparison to Ted's. Woody, in the last 3 laps, constantly in the mid to low 2-minute 3s, while Ted is setting high 3s, but also a high 4 and a low 4, so Woody definitely gaining on Ted by at least half a second per lap, actually, even more. So expect maybe a coming together in the last stint here.
Yeah, if he gains half a second a lap, every lap till the end of the race, on paper he will catch him on the last lap. 10 laps to go, make that 9 as they start lap 19, and with a gap that's 10 seconds, half a second a lap, it's going to be close, but you never know. Maybe Woody might try an undercut attempt on Ted, but obviously Ted's 10 seconds in front. Dan's into the pits finally to repair the damage. We'll go on to a set of the super soft tyres to complete the mandatory set, but we could still have a battle on our hands for second place with mistakes that are so easy to make at this track. Never know, your championship leader, race winner, Wolfie, could still technically make a mistake. He's driven a fantastic race so far, and in a car that on paper, struggles at this track. He's doing a stunning job. 11 seconds clear of Ted.
But Dan in the pits, meanwhile.
So Dan coming out of the pits. He's 1 minute 5 seconds behind the race leader. 32 seconds behind ND.
He has gone for the softs again.
So Dan still needs to make one more pit stop. Was that a misclick from Dan's behalf? Maybe he was trying to select the tyres and too quickly, and he's gone into the softs. Could that be the turning point in this race? He might not even finish in 5th place. He's still got a pit. Actually, having said that, Alexander still has to pit anyway, so the gap will still be 25 seconds.
These tyres on Melix look more than well done.
Yeah, that Melix has been on those tyres since lap 4, I think. Lap 10, because he pitted early and then he pitted again for the softs. That gap, though, is now down to 8.8 seconds between Ted and Woody. Meanwhile, the headlines of the Scout Dan getting all out of shape. I caught that at the last minute. Sideways through the corner. Ted preventing the undercut attempt, pitting on lap 19. Woody stays out. Wolfie also staying out. Has the Scout Dan thrown away his chances of beating ND in this race by going onto a set of the soft tyres? We're not going to hear from him during the race, obviously. We'll have to find out what happened after the race. But I think he must have misclicked and gone onto a set of the softs rather than clicking the super softs. We'll have to wait and see whether he pits this lap or whether he's going to finish the stint at the end and go onto the set of super softs for the final few laps. Ted's in for the super softs, and that's Dan going off through turn 20 and 22. And it's gone from bad to worse for the young Brit in the Peugeot.
He does not choose to pit.
Woody's round, and Woody's round at turn 4. He's now hit the wall. The marshal's pretty much waving the yellow flag into his cockpit. And another turning point in this race. And there we see the end of the crash from Woody. He is doing a 360 spin. Place. And he's now up into 2nd place. And that's... Ow. That's me dropping my keyboard in excitement. That's the 3rd gift that Andy's received in this race. He's almost like Jesus and the 3 kings. Firstly, it was Dan crashing. Secondly, Dan crashing again and selecting the wrong tyres. And now it's Woody off into the barrier with damage everywhere in a race that he's thrown away and might not even finish on the podium. Dan, though, still has to pit off with the soft tyres. He has to go into the super softs. And Woody's all out of shape. He's now about to be overtaken from Ted, who's made his pit stop onto the super softs. We were talking about the gap coming down, and Woody doing so well to close the gap. He's now gone and thrown it all away. There goes Ted with an easy move up into 3rd place, back up onto the podium, but will be in 2nd place when ND makes his pit stop. This race has turned on its head so many times, and now sees ND on the podium. Was running 5th place 3 laps ago, but it's now been gifted 3rd place as he comes into the pits to make his 3rd and final pit stop.
Oh, and he's off!
Oh, and he's crashed into the pits. What? I don't know what to say in this race. 3 gifts damage. Now. And we're going to get a replay on the screen to see exactly what happened right on board. He's gone in so late on the brakes. He's missed the 2nd kind of chicane, and he's off into the white tyre barriers. And, well, who's going to finish on the podium? This could still be Woody's chance to finish on the podium. The Scout Dan might still... Who knows? He has to still make another a pit stop and go into the super soft tyres. Andy and Woody are into the pits to serve their damage respectively, but what is going on in the final stint? What is happening? Andy's in and out of the pits. Woody is not too far behind. The gap's going to sort itself out. It's about 3.7 seconds now between the 2 Irishmen, and with 7 laps to go, the race is now truly on for 4th place. Make it 4th place on the track. Could be 3rd by the time the Scout Dan makes his pit stop. Max Landers is in for the super soft tyres.
I was about to praise ND as well for keeping it clean and benefiting from the turmoil around him, but yeah, even he has dropped it now, entering the pits. It is quite a weird pit entry, we have to say.
Yeah, there are quite a few tracks on this game that have interesting pit entries.
Topolis comes to my mind.
Definitely one of the weirder ones. I'm trying to think of a few others. Brands Hatch isn't the easiest. What else has an awkward chicane when coming into the pits?
Goodwood.
I think that's... Yeah, Goodwood as well.
Goodwood.
You know, maybe we'll have to do a race next season. Maybe the calendar next season will have to be the 8 worst pit lane entrances. That could make an interesting calendar. Mount Panorama, Goodwood. Maybe Kyoto backwards, because that brings you out right onto the racing line. Lagomaggiore backwards, It doesn't have a difficult pit lane, but you have to go so slow through the final corner to make the turn into the pit lane. That could be quite a fun one to have on the calendar. Oh, Woody's off! I turn away for 1 second to look into the Twitch chat, and he's disconnected. I saw the name disappear at the last second. Got a replay to see what happened. He's gone onto the grass, entering the corner, and a lack of focus, and he's off into the barrier. The car then disappears from the screen. We're now down to 5 drivers, and that promotes Andy back up onto the podium. What is... Well, this race has just been flipped, and then flipped again. I don't know what to say. Mistakes, well, I'm trying to say too many things at once here. This is Woody's second consecutive DNF after retiring from Spa. It's not been the return he would have been hoping for. But just a little lack of concentration, running onto the grass on the right hand side. He says in the chat his wheel broke when he crashed, and it stuck 30 degrees to the left when going down the straight. Unfortunate for him. As you can see, he's not happy with that, running in what could have been a good result for him and the team.
All that chaos actually has caused the field to spread even more. Maybe except for Dan and ND. He's still 7.2 seconds behind. Let's see what he can do in these last 5 laps of the race.
Yeah, but what we've got to remember is Dan's still got to pits for the mandatory super soft tyres. He's gone mediums, pitted for softs, and then went softs again. So he still has to make another pit stop in this race.
Got that, yeah.
Whether he's going to save it for the final few laps, or if he's going to, doesn't seem to be serving it now. Ted has got, it looks like he's actually set the fastest lap of the race in the last lap. Trying to close down the 13.5 second gap to his teammate. Ted kind of in a race of his own, 13 seconds behind Wolfie and 24 seconds ahead of the Scout Dan. Just has to keep it out on track and hope that his Wi-Fi doesn't fail him with 8 corners to go. Speaking of drivers, we're having a race of his own. Medic Sandals as well, over a minute behind ND. It's definitely going to cost, well, if he's to gain or get 4th place in this race, it's going to have to be some mistake from ND, who just has to keep it on the track. But I think the most popular podium of the season has actually been Wolfie, Ted and Dan, which has happened 3 times this season and is actually the most popular podium, and it looks like it's going to be repeating itself again tonight, except Dan has got to make another pit stop, unfortunately for him. But you never know, there's still room, there's still time for ND to make a mistake, pick up damage that could gift the Scout Dan another podium in the league. It's still 4 laps to go. Wolfie going wide actually at the final corner to start lap 24 of 27. 4 laps to go here at Mount Panorama for the penultimate race of the season. Drivers running for pride and their own personal rivals in the championship. The championship has, though, been wrapped up in both drivers and constructors.
Let's see if Dan pits now. Each lap he stays out will minimize his time to catch back up to ND. He does not pit.
Does he know? Does he know he's not used the tyres? Maybe unless he's saving it for the final lap, trying to get the most out of these soft tyres. Does he? Maybe, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what was. I mean, it's been the same rules all season. All drivers know the rules and regulations that we've implemented for season 4. But does he know he's misclicked? Has he realised he's on the soft compound tyres? We'll have to wait and see. ND will be doing his best just to try and keep it out of the barriers. With only 3-4 laps to go, this track claiming many victims tonight. 5 drivers remain, but that doesn't tell the whole story. ND picking up damage, Woody picking up damage, Dan picking up lots of damage.
Dan might go for a splash and dash for the last 2 laps of the race to maybe, do some damage limitation. Maybe he has realised his mistake, maybe not, but... yeah,
it's going to be tough.
Confusing choice of strategy here.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy to misclick, and especially when you're trying to get in and out of the pit so quickly, you might accidentally click "Do not repair" or "Do not refuel" when going into the pits. And Dan drifting down the dipper, maybe trying to do it for the cameras, but highly doubt it at this stage of the race. He's not in a comfortable 3rd position. Still has to make another scheduled pit stop.
As you mentioned, the heat of the moment maybe causing Dan to misclick, or the slightest drift of the left stick maybe causing it.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the thing is with F1 as well, when you're in the pit lane, you can't select the tyres. You have to do it before you come into the pits. But obviously with this game, some tracks you take 10, 15, even 20 seconds to reach the pit lane, so they do have the time to scroll over to select the tyres. Dan is into the pits. He's realised his mistake, and he's going to leave it to 3 laps to try and close down the gap. He negotiates the pit lane chicane, and it's going to be a splash and dash for the Brits. ND now goes around the final corner up into 3rd place, and it's going to have to, at this stage of the race, it's going to have to be a mistake from ND if Dan is to finish on the podium. A reminder, those two are separated by 0 points in the championship as things stand. As things stand after this race, though, it will be 3 points in favour of ND, who will overtake the Scout Dan. Dan only in 3rd place, based off a higher... he's got more second places this season than ND. 14 seconds, 3 laps. Can Dan do it?
He did not have to refuel, so that's a little advantage. Refueling refueling must have thrown him back for 20 plus seconds behind ND, so yeah, maybe this race has been thrown upside down multiple times, so Dan may be hoping for a mistake from ND with his slightly worn tyres.
Yeah, you'd think if it was a mistake from ND, he'd either have to be backwards or engine damage for the gap to come down quite significantly, because we've seen the pace these guys had with front bumper and suspension damage. They weren't losing a significant amount of time. They were still losing time, but it wasn't 4 seconds a lap, which is roughly, it's not even what Danny's 5 seconds a lap to gain the gap to ND. So it's going to have to be engine damage, or for ND to be facing the wrong way significantly off the track if he's to fight back onto the podium. Never say never, especially when it's at Mount Panorama. This race has been thrown on its head so many times, and Wolfie actually hitting the barrier on the exit of turn 2 just as I flicked to spectate him. So you never know, Ted could technically, anyone could technically still win this race. Wolfie just making a little bit of mistakes here. He's hit the wall again on the exit of turn 6, I think that is. So you never know, Ted could still be in this. 16 seconds.
You want to say the word?
Maybe. I think we have reached a little bit of a lull here at Mount Panorama, 26 laps into the race.
How convenient you said that as we are approaching the dipper.
Does Wolfie negotiate it fair and fairly cleanly? Yeah, it's clean, but the gap's come down to within 14 seconds. You never know, the race could still be on. There could still be a mistake on the final lap. He's hit the wall on the exit of the Forest Elbow. Meanwhile, Dan is closing the gap, but not closing it enough. As the rest of the field, Ted making his way through the dipper. We've said the L word. Let's hope it doesn't impact the wrong driver, as it has done many a times in the past. Wolfie, though, making his way through the final sector for the penultimate time tonight. We'll go round the final corner to start the final lap of the race. ND doesn't make contact with either barrier going down the dipper. Maybe the L word is starting to lose its effect the later on in the race you say it. But Dan's actually got damage, so we've come into effect. But it's impacted the driver who wanted to make all the roads on ND in third, down with front air and suspension damage. It's the third or fourth time tonight he's got damage at this track. And, well, that's not going to help his chances of finishing on the podium. It is definitely going to have to come down to a mistake or an internet issue from ND if he's to finish on the podium. Wolfie, though, halfway through the final lap, the blue flags are being waved for Melix Sandils in front, and it looks like he is set to win this race. It's been a very dominant and controlled race from Wolfie, another one of his signature wins. There's a lot of dust being kicked up in front. I think that was Melix Sandils running wide. But it has been a dominant race from Wolfie tonight. He's only got one straight in a few corners left to go here at Mount Panorama. He overtakes and laps Melix Sandils, who moves off the racing line to let him go through. He's led pretty much every single lap, apart from the ones where he came into the pits, but since then he's absolutely led from start to finish. Was under pressure from his teammate on the early phases of this race, but he just put that to one side, and he's led ever since. He's equaling his consecutive race wins. He's won the past 4 races. He rounds the final corner for the final time here at Mount Panorama. Almost lost it in the end, but he wins round 14 here at Mount Panorama. Makes it 5 wins in a row. We'll be trying to set a new record next week at Dragon Trail Gardens for the final race of the season, trying to make it 6 out of 6, and continues his winning streak and finishing on the podium in every single race this season. Ted claiming another second place, his first second place since Interlagos back in Group 4, finishes 17 seconds behind his teammate. In the end, it's been ND who picks up the pieces from this race. He's capitalised on all the mistakes that have been made from the drivers around him, plus the mistakes from himself, but he's picked himself back off the ground and he's fought his way through the field, capitalised on Dan picking the wrong set of tyres in the pit lane, and it's going to be another podium, his second in a row for ND, and his fourth third place of the season, finishing 32 seconds behind Ted. And what could have been a podium, what could have probably maybe even been second place for Dan, finishes backwards across the line with the front suspension damage, and it's Dan who finishes in fourth. Melix Sandils in fifth, a lap down. Believe it or not, it's going to be the 12th time I'm saying it this season. And it's a familiar suit, a familiar helmet, and a familiar name on the top step of the podium. Got pole, led every single lap. I can't quite remember who got the fastest lap, but I'll just double check in the end.
I think it was Ted.
And to confirm, it was Ted with a 2-minute 2.4 on lap 22. We'll be claiming an extra point in the championship and solidifies second place, and he can no longer be catched from the cars behind.
Also advantage for ND in the battle for third in the championship, as he finishes in front of Dan. So tides can still change in the last race for that battle.
And claims 3 points, or gets a 3-point advantage over the Scout Dan going into the final race of the season. He's saying, Andy in the chat saying he did not deserve the podium. Well, I guess when it comes to racing, it's not whether you deserved it or not. It's about final results and capitalising on the mistakes that other drivers make around you. But thanks to everyone who's currently who has watched this race. I hope you have enjoyed it. Stay tuned for next week, where we still have a Constructors' Championship to be decided in Group A, equal on points between Team Interrogator and BCMR. It could come down to who gets the fastest lap of the race. It's definitely going to be fun. Third place in the championship is still yet to be decided by the Scout Dan and ND. Only 3 points in it between those two. Plus, second place in the Constructors' Championship is still yet to be decided. 30 points were in it before this race, but that gap definitely coming down in ND's favour. I think ND's team's behind. No, ND's actually going to extend his advantage out on top, finishing in third and fifth place for the team. I don't know if Tobbs, if you have anything to say about if anything else to add to that race.
Well, I can only echo what you were saying about Group A. It's definitely worth tuning in for that. It will be an almighty battle for the Constructors' Championship. So yeah, if you want to watch something for a Friday evening, consider watching Group A.
Definitely. Next week is Dragon Trail Gardens backwards configuration for the final race in Group 3, the final race of the season. But the Constructors' Championship is still undecided. Can Toussaint and Tiger make it 3 out of 3? You have to wait and see. I've been X90G, and it's goodbye from me. See you next week.
See you. Goodbye.